Umajnanatmandasyanthananslashmakam Shakshurmritam yena tasmai shigurve namah. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurabhani Pacharani Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachai Desatarni Srila Prabhupada Ki. So today we will discuss chapter 13, verses 20 till the end of the chapter. That before we heard in the first part of the 13th chapter about 3-4 subject matters. We heard about Kshetra, Kshetragya, Jnana, and Jneyam. That the last section, Jneyam, Jneya, is described as the self, Atman, and the super self, Paramatman. That and we heard about the characteristics of both. But now in this section, this coming section, Krishna will explain the soul, the Atma, and the super soul, Paramatma, in terms of Purush. Purush means the enjoyer.
Maharaj, I think network issue a little bit.
Am I not clear?
Okay, now you clear. Sometimes it gets like checked and it's like not moving at all.
Yeah.
Okay, continue. Maybe, yeah, I did a little bit. It could be from my side, but anyway, you can continue. Let's see.
Okay. So now in the coming section, Krishna will speak about this Jneya, which is the Atma and the Paramatma, the self and the super self, or the super soul, and how they are connected with material nature. So how is our soul?
Yes, it's actually issue.
Yeah.
It's an issue. Sound system.
Okay. And do the others hear me clearly?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay.
Yes, Maharaj.
So it's not from my side. Okay. So the Purusha, the enjoyer.
And
how
other Prabhujis and Matajis, do you guys hear Maharaj or?
I'm
Maharaj?
hearing you clearly.
Yeah, I
Yes,
hear.
yes, yes, Prabhu.
I'm hearing clearly.
Push. I'm hearing clearly.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's.
So in this section, we'll explain how the soul is connected with material nature and also the super soul. I may remind you, Bhagavad Gita has 5 topics. It speaks about Ishvara, about the Jiva, or the soul. It speaks about material nature, Prakriti. It speaks about Kala, time, and about karma, work. And knowing by Bhagavad Gita is knowing these connections between these 5. That gives you a deeper insight in Bhagavad Gita. But here we have a more detailed point, which is very important. How is the soul connected with material nature, and how is the super soul connected with material nature? And it's about Purush, that connection. We will see, enjoy her. Because in this section, at the end of this section, Krishna will explain, if you understand these connections, how we are connected, you can disconnect and attain liberation. Does that make sense? That so this 13th chapter, it's about Jnana. All this, practically, the entire last 6 chapters are about Jnana. Of course, the last chapter is a summary again, like that second chapter. We have 2 summaries in Bhagavad Gita. But here, in this chapter, Krishna explains about Prakriti and Purush, and about we can attain liberation by understanding this connection between the jiva, spirit, soul, and material nature. In the next chapter is a different jnana, knowledge. It will explain how we can attain liberation by understanding the 3 modes of nature and situate ourselves in goodness and from there transcend. And in the 15th chapter, Krishna explains the same thing, how we can attain liberation, but with an allegory of the banyan tree and how to cut this tree with knowledge and attachment. In the 16th chapter, he explains again jnana, knowledge of the divine characteristics and knowledge of the demoniac qualities. And by giving up the demoniac qualities and developing the divine qualities, one can attain liberation. The different ways, Krishna explains the same thing. But this 13th chapter is important. It explains our connection with material nature. But first, in text 20, Lord Krishna will explain the characteristics of material nature and of the living entity first. So before we read, we offer our respect to the speaker of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna, with the words, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Prakritim Purusham Chaiva Vidyanadi Ubhavapi Vikaram Sagunam Shaiva Vidhi Prakriti Sambhavan. Material nature and the living entity should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, the living entity is in the category of his energy, and the super soul is in the category of his personal expansions. So the Paramatma is an expansion of Krishna, and material nature is his energy. We heard about that. It's in the 7th chapter, 7:4, where Bhumirapanalavar Kaman Buddhavasha Ahankaritya Bina Prakriti Ashtata. Bina Prakriti Ashtata. These 8 material elements are my separated material energy. But also the living entity is in the category of his energy, spiritual energy. That's aparayam itostvangam prakriti vidimeparam. But besides this material energy, there's the higher spiritual energy comprising the living entities. both Krishna says, Prakriti, material nature, and the Atman are both eternal. But there is a difference. That's their common characteristic. They are eternal. But eternal means they existed before the creation. But so the living entities are the superior energy. Why is it superior? It doesn't change. It's spiritual. And the material energy constantly changes. Although it's eternal, it transforms one sort of energy in another. But the total is conservation of energy. That's physics. Yeah. Material nature was absorbed in the Supreme Personality of God, so it was not manifested, but it's there. It was absorbed in the Supreme Personality of God at Mahavishnu, and when it was required, it was manifested by the agency of the Mahatattva. In the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, fourth canto, twice is completely explained this process of creation. And this is explained in detail there, many chapters. Here is just a few sentences. Similarly, the living entities are also in him, and because they are conditioned, they are averse to serving the Supreme Lord. Thus, they are not allowed to enter into the spiritual sky. Yes. So Krishna gives them a chance. Give them a chance to act in the material world and to prepare them to go back to the spiritual world. That's the purpose of the creation. Also explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah. So we don't know when we came in contact with material nature. But Srila Prabhupada writes, that doesn't matter. Krishna knows. We should not try to find out. We cannot. We are Nitya Baddha. It's like we are eternally conditioned. We cannot trace back of our being how we became conditioned. It's not possible. Too long ago. That now, what did we learn today? That so we highlighted 2 points. Prakriti, material nature, undergoes constant transformation, but the Purush does not. The living entities remain unchanged, but out of ignorance they identify with the changes of the body. So we spirit soul are not changing, but the body is changing. The body is made of material nature. And although the superior energy of the Lord, the living entity, has become conditioned by material nature due to his rebellious desires. When there is creation, the living entities are given the opportunity to act in the material world and prepare themselves to enter the spiritual world. So Bhagavad Gita explains how to do that. Now, we can go to the next verse. But before we go to the next verse, Srila Prabhupada has quote, so it's quite a long quote, but it's worthwhile reading it. I read all the quotes this morning, in Europe it's afternoon, for you it's morning. 20. So there were 6 questions asked by Arjuna. Kshetra, Kshetra, Jnana, Jnana, Bhakti, Purush. So Krishna has already replied, what is Kshetra, Kshetra, Jnana? What is the process of knowledge and what is the object of knowledge? Now he's beginning to explain what is material nature and what are the living entities. Material nature, Bhakti, is enjoyable. Bhakti means enjoyable, and Purush means enjoyer. Actually, none of us are Purush, so we think we are Purush. The condition so. This conception of Purush, enjoyer, is that so-called woman and so-called man also want to enjoy. Not only man, every living entity, cats, dogs, trees, aquatics, everyone, because this material world means all the living entities beginning from Lord Brahma down to the smallest ant are seeking enjoyment. That is Purush, spirit. When we're seeking enjoyment, it's called Purush, but the actual Purush is Krishna. So this purport of Srila Prabhupada, which is from a lecture of Bhagavad Gita on the verse we have just discussed in Bombay in 1973, it's waking us up. That because sometimes we hear this, all this philosophy, but then what does it practice mean? Srila Prabhupada very clearly explains it in this lecture. We are all Prakrtis, and because being Prakriti, we are trying to become Purush. That is called Maya or illusion. It's one definition of Maya Srila Prabhupada gives here. There are many. We are differently dressed in the material ingredient. Bhumiralana, Nalavaya. We are dressed. Everyone's body is made of these 5 elements. Mind and intelligence are also subtle material elements. And with this combination, we have this body with which we are trying to enjoy this material world. We have forgotten that we are spirit souls, part and parcels of Krishna. Our business is not to enjoy, but to help Krishna to enjoy. That's our business. So here Srila Prabhupada says that everyone's body is made of 5 elements. Mind and intelligence are also subtle material elements. In the Upanishads, I just heard about the Upanishads, and there in one of the Upanishads, the teacher is asking the student to fast 2 days. And 2 days later, the student fasts 2 days and comes before his teacher, and the teacher said, recite now the verses you have memorized. And the student said, I cannot, I'm too weak, I don't remember anything. And the student said, and the teacher then replied, you see, the subtle body also depends on food. That's a practical instruction. Also the subtle body depends on food. So it's subtle material elements, Srila Prabhupada says. Anukulyena Krishna nu silanam. Anukula means favorable. Krishna nu silanam. Krishna conscious, always thinking of how to make Krishna happy. That is Bhakti. The first class example is the gopis or the inhabitants of Vrindavan. They are all trying to make Krishna happy. That's Vrindavan. It is here also. If you try to make Krishna happy, this can be converted into Vrindavan, Vaikuntha. But we don't have that attitude. By the influence of Maya, we become Purush. We want to enjoy. Why should Krishna enjoy? I will enjoy. I'm Krishna. I'm God. This is going on. So the enjoyable in this material world and the living entities are trying to enjoy it. They are not actually the enjoyer. They are suffering. And that's true. From the moment you want to enjoy things in this world, your suffering starts, Prahlad Maharaj says in the seventh canto. They are becoming entangled because of this enjoying spirit. They are developing different types of mentality, and at the time of death, according to the mentality, they get their next body. That means by this enjoying spirit, they are becoming entangled. They are not becoming free. There are 5 kinds of rasa: Santa, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, Madhurya. So you can select any of them because there must be varieties. Because we are living entities, we want to enjoy. Therefore, variety is the mother of enjoyment. You cannot make everything impersonal. Even in the spiritual world, there are varieties. Those varieties are reflected in the material world. Therefore, here also, we love somebody as friend. We love somebody as wife. We love somebody as father. We love somebody as mother. The same thing is pervertedly reflected. And because it is illusion, we are not satisfied. If we want real love, real position, then we have to transfer these loving propensities into 5 different kinds of mellows to Krishna. Then it will be permanent and you will be happy. So this material world is also eternal. It is not, as the Mayavadi philosopher says, it is mithya, jagat mithya. Why is it mithya? So mithya means false. It's a fact. Because Krishna says, Bhumi Apanala Vayur Kama Buddhevasha Ahankar Vidyame Bina Prakriti. It is my Prakriti. Me Prakriti. My Prakriti. My energy. If Krishna is fact, why should this energy be mithya? So why should this energy be mithya? It is fact. Because Krishna says that Bhumi Apanala Vayur. It is my Prakriti. It is fact. Why should this energy be mithya? It's nonsense. The Jagat is not mithya. We don't say Krishna is truth. Then the world is also truth. But the fact that Krishna is an enjoyer and we are trying to enjoy, and we trying to be the enjoyer, that's not true. That is mithya.
Maharaj.
Yes.
Is that they said Brahma Sattva Jagat Mita. So Brahma Sattva means soul is truth, they believe it. And the material world is false. It's because if we don't use it, because they don't use it for Krishna. That's how they're thinking Mita.
Yeah. That we will,
for Krishna, so that nothing is Mita, everything Sattva.
That yes, the Jagat is not mithya.
Okay.
But the propensity to enjoy this world, that's mithya. Because we cannot be the enjoyer. That so Bhutva Pradiyate means that Prakriti is a fact. So it's Krishna's energy. That's the difference between the Mayavadi. Shiva Goswami says, yeah, there is Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. So that's the absolute truth in 3 aspects. But Bhagavan is the source of Paramatma and Brahman. And Bhagavan, Shiva Goswami says, with Sandarbhas, Bhagavan has his energies. And there it goes wrong with the impersonalist. Mayavadis cannot explain where Prakriti comes from. So this is Mithya. Anyway, there are many aspects that we are not going into this Mayavadi philosophy. Yeah, I studied it also, unfortunately. So the Jagat is not Mithya, but the propensity to enjoy this world, that is Mithya, because we cannot be the enjoyer. So Bhutva Paliyate means that Prakriti is a fact, but the manifestation is temporary. It's not false. Just like you sometimes become angry, so you show some symptoms. The symptoms are within you. But sometimes they are manifested, sometimes they are not. But the propensity, the quality of your becoming angry is there eternally. It is not that it is created. Sometimes you become passionate. Passion is there. It is not a new thing, but it sometimes appears, sometimes disappears. This is also the Prakriti of Krishna. The fact is that it is sometimes manifest, sometimes not manifest. So we can see it sometimes, sometimes not, but it's always there. It's eternal. That's the point. Just like clouds. Clouds are a fact, but sometimes they are manifest, sometimes they are not. When they are not manifest, you cannot say, clouds are false. No, they are fact, but their nature is sometimes be manifest, sometimes not. So here Krishna says, Prakriti Purusham Seva Vidyanadi. They are eternal. Krishna is eternal, the living entities are eternal, and the Prakritis are also eternal. So that's Srila Prabhupada's comment on the eternality of material nature and the living entity. Now we go back to our Bhagavad Gita 21. And that's an interesting verse. Karya Karna Kartritve Hetu Ragati Uchati Purusha Sukadukhanam Bhaktritve Hetu Uchati. Nature is said to be the cause of all causes and effects, of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various suffering and enjoyment in this world. So we have, this is about cause and effect. And that we will read a few points from the purport. There are 8,400,000 species of life. He enjoys different kinds of happiness and distress. His material happiness and distress are due to his body and not himself, as he is. So our happiness and distress in this world is due to the body. That we eat something nice and we think and the mind feels happy. That you get pain in your body, the unhappiness comes into the mind, is due to the body. That, that's the material cause. But what is the cause of this happiness and distress? It's a living entity, it's not material nature. That material nature has its cause and effect. That Srila Prabhupada tried, because of the desire to lord it over material nature, he is in the material world. That we will hear in the next verse. Why are we here? And why am I suffering? A question of Sanatana Goswami. the Lord Chaitanya. That doesn't a question of an intelligent person. Why am I in this material world? Why am I suffering? In the material world, everyone is struggling hard to acquire different kinds of pleasures for the body. It might be more clear to state that this body is the effect of the senses. The senses are instruments for gratifying desire. The sum total, body and instrument senses, are offered by material nature, as will be clear in the next verse. The living entity is blessed or damned with circumstances according to his past desire and activity. So in our previous lives, we have desired, we have done sinful activities or good karma. And material nature, that it gives us effects in this life. But factually, the living entity is the cause. So this point of Purusha, Sukha, Dukkha, the happiness and distress of the living entity, is Bprs, Heter Uchate, because he wants to enjoy the material world, which is not his position. That Krishna is the Purush, Bhaktaram Sarvapatapsam Sarvalokamashmai. Bhaktaram is the enjoyer of all sacrifices, of everything. According to one's desire and activity, material nature places one into residential quarters. To one's desires and activities, two things. You get a body according to your activities, previous life. These activities are going together with a consciousness at the time of death, and you get a new residential quarter. We are inside that. Srila Prabhupada will explain that in a lecture, and we will read soon an excerpt of that. One is placed in some particular kind of body, and it comes under control of material nature, because the body, being matter, must act according to the modes of nature. There's a cause and effect. You cannot go out of it. Suppose a living entity is put into the body of a dog. As soon as he's put into the body of a dog, he must act like a dog. Cause and effect. You cannot go beyond it. But in all circumstances, the super soul is with the individual soul. So this is part of the purport here. But there is an interesting quote of Srila Prabhupada, which we will bring on the screen now. Book of quotes. Yeah. Can someone read the quote which is on the screen? So how foolish?
Go full, Maharaj?
Please do, yes.
So how foolish we are to accept that a particular type of body and the sukha dukkha, happiness and distress, is already fixed. That is called destiny. So we are trying to improve the situation, because after all, as soon as you get this material body, it is suffering. There is no question of happiness, but by the illusory energy, we are thinking we are enjoying. This is called illusion, Maya. Just like same example, a hog is eating stool, but he is thinking he is enjoying. This is called prakshepatmika shakti. Prakshepatmika shakti. Not only hog, even the human society, somebody eats the most abominable, most rotten fish, Still, he is thinking he is enjoying. We have seen it. If he thinks that this is the most rotten thing, then he cannot live. Maya must make him forget that he is eating the most rotten thing. He will think it is very nice. Maya Prohrito Jnana. If you take the worm out of the stool, he will go back in. So this is the consequence of all forgetfulness. There is the varieties of living entities, bodies. Narottama Das Thakur therefore says, Nana Yoni Brahman Kare. We are wandering in different species of life. There are cockroaches in the common. They are also thinking, I'm enjoying. A tree is standing for several thousands of years, and he also thinking, I'm enjoying. So this is going on, and we are not very serious about our real identity, that I am part and parcel of God. Satchidananda Vigraha, na jayote no mriyote. My position is that I never take my birth and never die. Na hannote hannumane sarire. I do not die even after the destruction of this body. These things are my privilege, but I do not wish to take notice of them. This is called Maya. We are satisfied in this abominable condition of life by a body given by material nature.
Thank you so much. Now we will look what we have learned in this verse, that we are so according to the desires of the living entity, is giving a particular body in which to suffer or to enjoy. So we see here body of a human, the body of a monkey, could be the body of a plant. So many plants. That thus it comes under the control of nature, because the body, being matter, acts according to the laws of nature. That's 21. Okay. Now we go to next verse, 22. And that's a key verse that explains really the connection between the jiva and material nature. How is this connection made? It's through because the spirit soul is a cause of consciousness. We will hear it again in text 34 of this chapter. It pervades the whole body. And that consciousness, when it becomes contaminated by material nature, then it makes the connection. And what is this connection? It's lust. How does this lust develop? That's explained here. Bhakti prakati jangunam. That's where we are. That we try to enjoy, to exploit material nature. But how do we disconnect? We change our desires. We stop the desire to exploit, but we create a desire to use material nature in the service of Krishna. And that purifies you from this connection. Finally, you will be liberated. That's the essence of this verse, and that's the essence of how to get liberation. We'll hear more about that in Prabhupada's quote on 22. First, we read the verse. The living entity, material nature, thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. Due to his association with that material nature, thus he meets with good and evil among various species. So I read a few sentences of this purport. This verse is very important for an understanding of how the living entity transmigrates from one body with another. This makes us transmigrating from one body to another. Disconnected, finished. This change of dress is due to his attachment to material existence. Attachment comes by desiring to exploit, lust creates attachment. Yeah, we have heard before, Avitam Jnanam 89 covers your transcendental intelligence. You think you are the body, and so on. So, due to his desire to lord it over material nature, he is put in such undesirable circumstances. So that is this Bhungte Prakati Jangun. Yes, that's the point. So this is going on. In all cases, the living entity thinks himself the master of the circumstances, of his circumstances. Did we ourselves think sometimes we are the master of the circumstances? Did you ever make plans in your life? Did it all happen according to your plan? You were sure it's going to succeed?
No, we always make plan, Maharaj, but it doesn't. Then I could be the king of the United States.
Okay, that God Krishna saved you.
No, we plan, but it never happened.
So one has to rise, therefore, above the three material modes and become situated in the transcendental position. That change can be affected only by hearing from authoritative sources. Hearing, that's what we do now. We hear how to disconnect from the Gita. In the Bhagavatam, it's more detailed explained. So the living entity, if he submits to this hearing process, will lose his long-cherished desire to dominate nature. In the Vedic mantra, it is said that as he becomes learned in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he proportionately relishes his eternal blissful life. So, life is made for enjoyment, but spiritual enjoyment in association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A much higher enjoyment. Param dristvani vartante. So, first I want to read with you the quote. It's a long quote, but it is really, it's not so long that, so can someone read it? Quote 22.
Hare Krishna.
All right.
Go ahead. I'll wait.
Okay, please go, Mataji. Go.
Okay. You have to come out through the mother. That is called Yoni. But why these different mothers? Karanam Guna Sangyoja. As you have been infected by the 81 qualities of this material nature, it will give you a suitable body through a particular mother.
Yeah, just a moment. I want to explain 81 qualities of material nature. Where does that come from? That's explained in the Bhagavatam in the 3rd canto, that you have three modes of nature, that passion, goodness, ignorance. Sattva, goodness, Rajas, passion, Tamas, ignorance. So these are in their pure state, that's theoretical, but mostly they are combined. So if these three modes, so goodness can be combined with ignorance, goodness can be combined with passion, and passion can be combined with goodness, and ignorance of ignorance. Yeah, like that, you have 9 combinations. And if these 9 combinations again combine with each other, 9 times 9 is 81. All combinations of material nature. We have all a different nature and we have a different combination. That, so you can continue. So where is the science?
Okay. So where is the science? You have a botanical garden, but do you know the science? Why there is a tree? Why there is an ant? Why there is a bird? Why there is a man? You have no knowledge. The materials schools, colleges, and universities are simply producing animal life. Actual knowledge is here in the Bhagavad Gita. Why are you forced to accept a certain type of body? Because after death, you will have to accept a certain type of body. That is natural. Tattva. Continue?
Yes.
Yes. Bhagavad Gita 8.6, according to Bhava, we are getting different types of bodies according to our association with material nature. So if you don't associate with this material nature, then you don't get all these material bodies. So how can you get out of this material nature? That is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. You will find Mam Cha Yo Yapik Kyarina, one who is constantly engaged in Krishna service, is not associating with this material nature, but associating directly with Krishna, the Supreme Spirit. So if you keep yourself constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness, then you are not in this material world. There is no more fear of what kind of body you will get next. You will get the next body to go back to home, back to Godhead. There are two, okay.
I will continue.
Okay.
There are
Thank
two
you.
natures. So spiritual nature, the living entities, are to be enjoyed. Enjoyed by whom? Enjoyed by God, Krishna. Krishna says that Bhaktaham. I'm the enjoyer. Just like in this temple, who is the enjoyer? Krishna is the enjoyer. We are working for Krishna's enjoyment. Krishna will eat something very nice. Our business is to prepare it nicely and offer to Krishna. He's the enjoyer. He's enjoying his flute in the company of Srimati Radharani. So his position is enjoyer, and we are servants. We don't claim that we are on an equal level of Krishna. That is not our philosophy. We claim to become servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. That is our position. Mayavadi philosophers, they say they are God. Their self-realization means that one realizes by their philosophies, so Maham, I'm God, I'm the same. That is their philosophy. And our philosophy is Soham. I'm of the same quality. I'm not the same person, but I'm of the same quality. We are the samples of Krishna, very small particles. Just if you take a drop of ocean water, but because we are surrendered to Krishna, we are confident about eating, sleeping. We don't bother about that. That is not our problem. Our problem is to serve Krishna honestly. This is our problem. The devotees are always anxious. Here, Krishna, the enjoyer, and we are the enjoyed. So business is to see how I'm being enjoyed by Krishna by serving him. This is devotion. This is Krishna consciousness. As long as you want to enjoy in this material world, you will remain in this material world. And as soon as you offer yourself to be enjoyed by Krishna as his servant and serve according to his order, then immediately you are in the spiritual world. So you can live in the material world or the spiritual world as you desire. If you want to remain in the spiritual world, this temple is the spiritual world. We are not living in Melbourne. This temple is not Melbourne. It is Vaikuntha. That was 22. So first we look. We are going now to text 23. So we have heard that we are thinking that we are the master. And if we hear of Krishna, then we come to the point of understanding that Krishna is the Bhaktaram. He's the enjoyer. And the importance of hearing we will soon hear in verse 26. That now we have 23. So Krishna speaks about the super soul. Upadrastanamantasa bhakta bhaktamashvaram parametmin sapyukto desmin purusa para. So these are different qualities of the super soul. Is upadrasta, overseer. That is the anumanta, permitter. Is the bhakta, the master, the bhakta, the supreme enjoyer, the maha ishvara. Is Paramatma, the super soul. Translation. Yet in this body there is another transcendental enjoyer who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter and who is known as the super soul. The super soul. That's 23. A few points are from the purport. It is stated here that the super soul, who is always with the individual soul, is the representation of the Supreme Lord. So it's local aspect in our heart of the Supreme Lord. It is distinctly clear that the Atma and Paramatma are different. Paramatma is the Supreme Lord. Is present within to sanction the individual soul's desire material enjoyment. Without the sanction of the Supreme Soul, the individual soul cannot do anything. So Krishna does not want us in that position, but we want. And it's like a father and a son, and the son says, I want to do this, and the father said, no, don't do that. And the son said, no, I want to do this. And the father, okay, you try it out, but on your responsibility. And that's what's happening.
I have one question, Maharaj, in that
Yes,
concept.
please.
Say, I heard one argument the other day, like if Krishna, or some people says God, he is the doer of everything. And if he wants, that can be possible. If he don't want, that cannot be possible. So then we have individuality also. So we can go madness, something. So how we can say that madness is also Krishna want, and that's why I did. But like say I want to go to movie theater instead of going to the temple. So is that confusion going to temple or going to movie theater is raised by Krishna also. And then finally movie theater is win and I went to the movie theater. If so, how Krishna plays in that role?
Yeah, but that's explained in Bhagavad Gita in many ways. We have heard in the 5th chapter that Krishna says that this is in the, that we heard before, 5th chapter.
What's the verse number?
I know it more or less. Just
Okay.
a few verses that I want to quote. So Krishna says in 5:14, Nakartit vam nakarmani lokasyochi prabhu nakarma falasamyogam svavafti bhavartate. The embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of nature. So Krishna says here the living entity is not responsible, is all material nature. And in the next verse, Krishna says, Natate kachit papam nacheva sukritam pibu argyanina pitam jnanam tenamiyanti yantava. Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their knowledge. So Krishna says, I'm also not responsible for the sinful activities of actions. I'm not responsible. So in one verse, Krishna says the living entity is not responsible, it's material nature. And here Krishna says, I'm also not responsible.
So we can live on material nature, everything?
So now the confusion is complete, right?
Yeah, there's a confusion. Yeah.
But Krishna explains that further in the 18th chapter, verse 14.
Yeah.
There he says that, and then everything falls in place. Adhistanam tata karta karnam sapritach vidam vivida sapritach shesta devam shaivatra panshanam. There are 5 factors of action. The place of action, the performer of the various senses, the many kinds of endeavors, ultimately the super soul. These are the 5. So the first is the body. The body is under control of material nature.
Yep.
And who controls material nature?
Krishna.
The 5th factor, Paramatma.
Paramatma, yeah.
Paramatma, it says that Mayata Kshene Prakati Chutacheta Characham. I as the super soul control material nature, Krishna says it. And the body is made of material nature. And then you have the Karanam, the senses. It's also material nature, also controlled by the super soul. And Pridach Fridam Vividas Sapritach Shasta, yeah. This is this. Vivida Pitach Shasta. All the endeavors that come up into the mind. That's a subtle body. It's also material nature.
Okay, I see.
That's also under control of the super soul. But there is one factor, the karta. The karta is the soul.
Yeah, super soul. Yeah.
The soul. That's not the super soul, it's the soul, the Atma.
So,
the
this is we call individual soul, right?
Yeah. And
that's the individual. Okay. So
and the spirit soul is here called the karta, the doer.
Okay.
How is the soul the doer? What does the soul do? What is the symptom of the soul? Consciousness. But the activity of the soul is becoming attached or desire. So we become conditioned by our desire. And that's what we just have learned. Bhunkte pragati jan gunam. We become attached to something and we become entrapped. So that is what we do. And we desire what we want. Krishna does not come in between.
Okay.
That of course, material nature makes many proposes so many things to enjoy.
Yeah, that you told 81 already.
Yeah. And so Krishna says, I'm not a doer. I only created the system.
I see.
So don't blame me.
It's a very pretty system.
Yeah, and also Krishna in the 5th chapter says, living entity is not a doer. Everything is done by material nature, but material nature reacts with the desire and the karma of the living entity. In that sense, we are the doer.
Yes. Yeah, for my
that,
karma. Yeah.
that must be understood.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Then we can go on. That back, which verse we are? That the Upadastamanta verse 23. 23. Yes. So Paramatma, the Supreme Lord, is present within to sanction the individual soul's desiring material enjoyment. So we desire, and the super soul checked, okay, you desire that? Do you have the karma to fulfill that desire of your past activities? It checks. He said, no, you don't have. So your desire will not be fulfilled. Or you have, and say, okay, I permit that. So according to desire so without sanction of the Supreme Lord, the individual soul cannot do anything. He's staying as a friend. Living entity has the tendency to reject the sanction of the Supreme Lord and act independently in an attempt to dominate material nature, because he has this tendency. It's called marginal energy of the Supreme Lord. So that's we are very minor, and we can connect with the material energy or with the spiritual energy. We connect with the material energy, Bhakti, Pragati, Jan, Gunan. That's how we do. How do we connect with the spiritual energy that we heard before in the 9th chapter? Mahatmanas to Mamparta, Devim Pragati Ashtita. 9, 13 or 14, yeah. That the Mahatma connect with the divine energy. How does he do that? Satatam Kirtayantamam, by always glorifying the Lord. He's glorifying by his words, glorifying by chanting his holy names, and so on. In that So the individual entities continually rejecting the association of spiritual light. This misuse of independence is the cause of his material strife in the conditions. So we think ourselves the doer, but we are not the doer. The doer is the super soul. We are the secondary doer. It's not that we are not doing anything. We do by desiring. So the misuse of independence is the cause of material strife in the conditioned nature. So we misuse our independence. We think this is mine for my enjoyment, but that's sinful activity, the base of sinful activity. Not understanding that everything belongs to Krishna and is for his enjoyment. It's criminal from the spiritual point of view, that misuse. From without, it gives instructions, as in Bhagavad Gita, and from within, it tries the living entity to convince that these activities in the material world are not conducive for real happiness. So Krishna is there in our heart to convince us, stop this nonsense. That it tells us from within the heart and he tells us outside by Sadhu Shastra, Guru Sadhu Shastra, outside. Inside, he tells us also that that's why Krishna gives us frustration. We are frustrated. We are not getting what we want. Krishna is teaching us, don't do it again. But we do it again, and again frustration. Krishna says, don't do it. That it gives frustration, and it happens again and again and again. So, what did we learn here? Okay. A PowerPoint again. Share. Oh, it is not the right one. Share. Yeah, 22. So as long as one is captivated by material lust, one must transmigrate from one body to another. That we heard last time. And now about the Anumanta, the Upadrasta Anumanta. Paramatma is present in everyone's body as overseer, permitter, and the supreme proprietor. You have here a picture of Paramatma. But in the Bhagavatam, the verse in the 3rd canto from Bhakti Yoga Parivavitaritsaroya, that verse explains that Krishna appears within the heart of his devotee in the form that the devotee feels attracted to. So Krishna takes the form of the super soul, the form of Krishna you feel attracted to. That's Ishtadev. Paramatma is all-pervading and is the maintainer of all living entities. The Lord is always trying to convince the living entity to give up his attempt of material happiness and take shelter of him. He gives instruction from within and without in the form of Bhagavad Gita and from within as a super soul. So the living entity is marginal energy because it has the tendency to act independently from the sanction of the Lord. In an attempt to dominate over nature by such misuse of independence, the living entity suffers material miseries. That everyone in this material world, somewhere or another, is in misery. Misery can be external, like here, but also mental misery. So much anxiety. Okay. That we don't have so much time, but I will read parts of this quote of this 23. Moment. Yeah. Via Atma is Paramatma. Via Ishvar is Parameshvar. We are not Parameshvar, we are Brahman, is Parabrahman. This Param word is used, but sometimes man with little intelligence cannot distinguish between Paramatma and Atma, Parameshvara and Ishvara. Here another word is used, Bhakta Maheshvara. We are not Bhakta, we are trying to become Bhakta or enjoyer, but we are becoming baffled. It is not possible, we cannot become Bhakta. We are enjoyed, predominated, not a predominator, just like one thing is enjoyed and the other is enjoyer. The Supreme Lord is the enjoyer. Bhaktaram Charaptapasam Sarvalok Maheshvaram. The same word again, Maheshvar. Maha Ishvara. Ma means great, Ishvar, controller. So we can control a few men, but Maheshvara means the control of all living entities. We may be proud of controlling a factory, a few thousand workers, but we are not Maheshvara. So Krishna gives us permission. Okay. We will read now verse 24, 25. There. Back to our 24. Yaivam Vetipurusham Bhaktim Sagunai Sahav Sarvata Vartamanopi Nasabuyapi Jayate. When you understand this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of material nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take his birth again, regardless of his present position. So that's what we explained in the beginning. If you understand how we connect with the material nature, then you understand how to disconnect. That there's one quote. 24 is a short one. That so the aim of life is always being stressed by Krishna to stop this process of undergoing changes of body. Janma mritu jara vyadi nabhuyo bijayate. In many places, Krishna has said this. Katkatvana nivartante tatama paramamama jaktvadam punarchanma naitemami tisarina. So many. One who performs devotional service can still be in this body and be liberated, but one whose mind and word and activities are engaged in the service of the Lord, although he may be situated in any position, Jivan Mukta Sauchate is liberated. The same thing is confirmed here. Sarvata Vartamanapi Nasabu Bhuyo Vichayate. Unless one is liberated, how can he stop his next birth? Here it is clearly said, Nabhuya Abhijayate. Abhijayate means to take birth again, to accept the material body. So Srila Prabhupada here is quoting this verse of Nectar of Devotion. Iya yasya aredasya karmanamana sagari nakalesh apivastesu jivan mukta sauchate. One who uses his body, mind, and words, and his intellect in the service of Krishna is a liberated person. That's the only thing we have to do. Everything we have, use it in Krishna's service. You are liberated. That now text 25. 25. Here. Yanenatmati pashyanti keshita atmaninatmana anyasakena yogena karma yogena shapare. Some perceive the supersoul within themselves through meditation, others through the cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruitive desires. So different kinds of yogis are mentioned here. The karma yogis, jnana yogis, tanga yogis, and bhakti yogis. We go to the slides, then see here. So there are different classes of men who search for the absolute truth. Karma yogis, jnana yogis, astanga yogis, and bhakti yogis. Among these devotees are the best. Atheists, agnostics, skeptics, and monists are beyond the sense of spiritual understanding. So, yeah, the karma and the jnana yogis can come to Brahman realization. Astanga yogas can come to Paramatma realization. That's the goal of yoga. And the Bhakti yogas is Bhagavan realizations, which include Paramatma and Brahman. So therefore, they are the highest. Text 26. 26. Okay, go further. And that's a key verse, I would say. Very important verse. So, Anyat Vevamajanata Shudvanebhya Upashate Shudva te pisati trancheva mritum shuti parayana. Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. That that was Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, he wanted to give everyone a chance to hear about Krishna. And that was the order of Lord Chaitanya. That, so here the importance of hearing is stressed. Rukmini heard from Narada Muni about Krishna. Never met him. Just by hearing she became attracted. That we find in Krishna book. That so text 26. That so the hearing process is very important. All men should take advantage of hearing from realized souls and gradually become able to understand everything, Srila Prabhupada writes. Although the common man is often not as capable as so-called philosophers, faithful hearing from an authoritative person will help one to transcend material existence and go back home, back to Godhead. Just hearing from authorities, and Srila Prabhupada has many quotes on this topic. We see here 26, a very long quote that, but I just have a few points here. The Krishna, yeah, Srila Prabhupada explained a dog. You can say to a dog, chant Hare Krishna, but he cannot. He cannot hear. He cannot understand that. But why must we hear? We have forgotten that we are eternal servants of Krishna. That. But now we can understand and therefore surrender to Krishna. That what's our mistake? And that's interesting. So we should say to Krishna, Krishna, I forgot you. I forgot my relationship with you. But now I've come to know that I'm your eternal servant. Therefore engage me. I'm also serving. I'm not a master. In the material world, everything is servant. But what kind of servant? The summary is, I'm a servant of my senses, everyone. A man is thinking he's the master because he wants sense enjoyment. He becomes the servant of his wife. Actually, that is his position. I accept a woman as my wife, but the real meaning is that I agree to become her servant. If I cannot satisfy her nice, then she'll rebel and problems and so on. So Anya means the general public, not important man. Anyatve Jananta, because they are like animals, they have little knowledge of the anatomical and psychological condition of this body. Kshatrajya, they do not know. Krishna says, Kshatrajyanam yachnyanam tatmatam mama. Unless you know both Kshatriya and Kshatrajya, your knowledge is not perfect, but by hearing Bhagavad Gita, we can come to that point. That And then about the Gokaras. If you instruct a dog, my dear dog, please surrender to Krishna, will he do that? So similarly, a human being who does not surrender is no better than a dog. That's quite heavy. That anyway, that so this is this important section, very crucial section we went through. Now my question to you is, Srila Prabhupada says, yeah, the tiny Shiva thinks he's the master. Do you have an example from your own life where you thought you were the master? Even if you are engaged in devotional service, you may still think it. It's so deep-rooted that. But since you have come in contact with Krishna consciousness, what is your experience as a servant? Are you becoming more happy? So, question in the other direction. Good. Any questions on this section?
Hari Bol, Hari Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Pushpanjali Dasi. Okay.
Yes.
For myself, I would say, since coming to Krishna consciousness, realizing that I am not the doer and realizing that nothing happens. I believe it's stated, yes, in the Bhagavad Gita, where not a blade of grass moves unless Krishna sanctions it. So most times, like when people ask me, how are you doing? When I make it to a certain place, I always try to remember Krishna and say, by his mercy, I'm here. Everything I try to always remember that of myself, anything can happen in a moment, that he's in control, and it's only by his mercy. That's what I would say.
That I learned from Bhujam Prabhu, that
Yes.
we make plans, and sometimes in Krishna consciousness we have to make plans. But he would always say, if Krishna willing, then it will happen.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, Krishna willing.
That is,
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Okay. Then we can now pause a few minutes. It's 12:22. Let's resume at 12:30 in 8 minutes. And then we do the last section, which should go a little quicker. It's not so many quotes by Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Hi.
Hare Krishna.